Hey there, thanks for tuning into Dreamzzz. I'm Chris, and this is the big one. The largest LEGO Dream set is the Nightmare Shark Ship, and we're here today to deliver a full-on review and analysis of this incredible new villain-focused LEGO set. On the back of the box, we actually have some building alternatives, where not only can you have the standard shark ship itself, but you can have the flying version or even a wheeled version to turn it into a car, which is so cool that you can do that with the Nightmare King's vehicles as well. This is a really fun model and easily the best LEGO Dream set we are getting from this brand new wave. But before we get into things, definitely check out Dreamzzz has a mega review up of every single one of the brand new LEGO Dream sets, as well as individual reviews publishing very soon for each and every one of these sets themselves. And so, let's go on and jump into the Nightmare. Okay, so this is literally the flagship LEGO Dream set. Set number 71469 is the Nightmare Shark Ship. It retails for $140 US, 140 euros, which roughly translates to 150 US, and comes with 1,389 pieces, putting it at a 10.1 cent price per part ratio. The set comes with 4 standard minifigures, the Nightmare King, the 2 main protagonists, a captured civilian to rescue, as well as 2 little micro figures. Not really sure what exactly to call them. They're not quite micro figures and not quite minifigures. They are a brand new of smaller scale figure mold that LEGO has created specifically for Dreamzzz to depict many of the characters, from the denizens of the Mushroom Lands to, of course, the Nightmare King's creatures himself. There's a lot of different applications that they've used for a brand new body, and we'll be taking a look at those figures very soon. Of course, the focus is on the shark ship itself. But one thing I actually want to point out as we get into things is that for every single LEGO Dream set, the instruction manual is actually one of the most interesting parts of the entire set. And hear me out. You see, the instruction manual is completely different than a lot of standard LEGO set manuals. First of all, on the front cover you can see an actual piece of artwork showcasing the set itself. It's kind of like a stylized depiction of the contents of the set. But essentially, as you go through the manual, the booklet tells a story as you build your set, and this is a really interesting concept. I've never really seen LEGO do something like this before other than stuff like Ninjago Core, which kind of felt like the early version of what they intended to fully realize with LEGO Dreamzzz, where, as you can see, different pieces of artwork adorn every single step of the books, and even as you open up new bags, it actually has new pieces of artwork to showcase different parts of the set being constructed. For instance, with this bag here, as you open up bag 7, you get the Nightmare King, and you can see him right there, and you can see him literally building the Nightmare Shark Ship before the terrified eyes of one of the civilians and even his minions. So it's really interesting how the instruction manual actually has such nice artwork in it. I would highly recommend for folks who are just curious and checking it out. Obviously, once these sets do release in August, the artwork will become available online, so you will be able to get the instruction manuals and see the artwork themselves. So I just think it's a really cool thing they managed to do. And even depending on if you're building the heroes or villains, the pages where you're building the heroes are colored in a certain way, like Izzy right here has yellow colored pages, and then you get to the villains and they have purple colored pages depending on what you are building. It is just such a unique way of designing the experience of building a LEGO set, and almost makes it feel like the instruction manual is a comic in and of itself, where it is telling a full-on story of what exactly is going on with the progress of the build, and going from there. Now, every single LEGO Dream set also has a couple of alternate builds. They're not as drastic as some other stuff like Creator 3-in-1, but they're ways to take the main core concept of the set and rebuild it into something else. So first off, you have kind of the flying ship version of the set, which is the main configuration, but you can also turn it into a wheeled configuration with guns mounted on the front, which is actually something that appeared in the TV show itself, so I think it's actually really cool how they actually managed to integrate alternate builds into the sets themselves. Pretty much every single set has an alternate build, and of course, the instructions pages are colored differently depending on which alternate build you actually want to pursue, which is another really nice touch. This just feels like just that much little extra effort that they added in to make the sets feel more dynamic and alive. I love the art style of these instruction manuals and the comics included within, and I kind of wish that LEGO would do this for more LEGO themes because I had a blast putting these set together. In case you're curious, the alternate build for the set included a number of extra pieces, and here's a look at all of the extra pieces included in this particular set. But enough about the instruction manual, let's go ahead and go into the actual set itself. So again, this costs $140 US, which is about right for exactly how much you get. I feel like for the quantity of stuff, this feels like a very sizable and large vessel, and we'll talk a lot more about value at the end of the review, but I do want to start off by taking a look at the minifigures and mini creatures, or I guess the Nightmare Grimmspawn here, just to begin up the video to take a look at all the characters included in the set. First of all, my favorite minifigure from LEGO Dreamzzz is easily the Nightmare King. It is probably one of the most menacing and interesting LEGO villain designs we've ever gotten for an original LEGO theme in a long time. He wields a specialized dual-molded sword element created specifically for LEGO Dreamzzz in black and transparent pink. The cape is probably the coolest part, utilizing a rubber mix similar to the Batman 1989 minifigures, where you kind of have a rubberized cape which flows in the wind, but this time for the Nightmare King, you actually have nightmares oozing out of him, and you can see the mouths and the claws of his creations spawning from his very back, which is just so interesting. The headpiece feels straight out of Lord of the Rings, which I love. You have a dual-molded black and white headpiece here with the cowl. You can also kind of use it to bend his head, so if you want him kind of looking in one direction, you can actually pose the minifigure like so, which I really appreciate, and he even has an alternate face, although honestly I kind of am a little bit disappointed with the alternate face because I feel like it would have been really nice to get an evil cackling smile from him, because we never actually saw his mouth covered up really in the show, but maybe that's just a difference between these sets and the show themselves. The back of the torso is pretty simple in its design. You kind of have a rib cage on the back there, but for the most part, the design of this figure is so cool, and easily one of the standout minifigures of 2023. Moving onwards, the Nightmare King has brought alongside some of his creations to go along with him, the Grimmspawn here. The Grimmspawn are utilizing a brand new body component, which was introduced just for LEGO Dreamzzz. I'm curious if this will be used in any other sets. But this right here is Susan. Of course, all of the trio of Grimmspawn are very common throughout the show. There's a trio of named ones that kind of serve as the main henchmen, although unfortunately only 2 out of the 3 are actually in the physical sets. So I'm kind of curious when we're finally going to get the third one, which is probably the most prominent out of the 3 in the show. Susan here sports a brand new dual-molded headpiece, which feels like the natural evolution of the Ninjago Possession Ghost headpieces. We can really see that they're supposed to emulate this crackling fire atop the head. It is a nice blend between black and trans pink, and the head behind it is a suitably creepy one with multiple eyes peering through the visage of the face itself. The wings are cast in transparent pink. These are utilized from the LEGO Elves theme. They actually had them in transparent for LEGO Elves, but it's nice to get the Chima bat wings recolored there, and overall, really interesting small-scale character. It's just a shame that the accessories can really just only be held straight forwards at a 90-degree angle, although I don't really know how they would have managed to include articulation here, given how small the figures are. The next character here is another one of the Grimmspawn here. This is another one of the main ones. It's a great figure to get because you obviously have the very comical proportions of the head being the super scale large Big Fig style head, which they introduced for Thanos back for the Marvel Infinity Saga sets. We got a couple in the Lunar New Year sets, but I just think this is such a funny concept for a figure. He has such a big head and a small body. It's kind of creepy in a sense, but it's also a little bit goofy. It toes the line between goofy and creepy, and I just really like the overall design and aesthetic of this particular character. I just think he's a lot of fun. Moving on to the other minifigures, this right here is Nova. She's basically one of the members of the school who's not really part of the main gang, but she is getting caught up in this conflict. Nova has an alternate expression where she has a slightly sleepy look to her, like you can kind of see the eyes are a little bit half closed, which I really do like that expression. And then of course you have a sleeping face, which is really nice. I just love the pajamas being sloth themed. That is just so cute to be able to get as a minifigure. Fairly standard minifig all around, but nice new prints for the torso and the head. And finally we get to the 2 main heroes, Mateo and Izzy. Mateo here is in his fully kitted out version. He has full armor with the belt, he has a flowing green cape behind him, and he has my favorite iteration of Z-Blob that we see in all the sets, which is simply the Bionicle Baraki eyepiece with printing for the 2 little eyes on the eyepiece itself. This, to my knowledge, is the very first time that LEGO has actually printed that piece, which is really nice. I hope this opens doors for more printing on that particular piece in the future. What's really cool is that Mateo sports dual molded legs, so they really went all out with creating this character for this brand new theme, utilizing a green recolor of the LEGO Batman movie utility belt, which is a great one to get, and even using a new hairpiece, which was actually first introduced in black in the Icons of Play set for the Female Sports Stars LEGO set, which came out in June, but is really specifically made for the Dreamzzz line right here. It kind of is a tousled hairpiece with a nice printing on the green print right here, and an alternate face as well, which you can see on this side of the minifigure. Overall, a great minifig to get for the main protagonist of the theme. I like the brick-built pencil, but I actually think that the other main character, Izzy here, is even more interesting and probably one of the best LEGO Dreamzzz minifigures from the entire wave. So Izzy is probably the most detailed that you can make a minifigure in terms of a standard original theme. This is a really nice looking opalescent marbled transparent blend between pink and transparent blue that has glitter in it. It reminds me of some of the coolest hair pieces from the LEGO movie, but surprisingly enough, this is a solid piece. It is similar to the Energy Nia hairpiece from Ninjago Seabound, but it is so cool to get such a fantastical hairpiece. I really love the hairpiece and how it looks in the light. Having this in person is kind of hard to capture on camera, but it just looks so good. She also sports dual molded legs, which look great to see. Really cool how the characters for at least the main duo have dual molded legs, and even a fabric skirt or comma element, which is definitely something that a lot of other themes like LEGO Star Wars are missing, but it's really cool to get this for an original LEGO themed character. She's utilizing a lavender-colored recolor of the Star Wars Praetorian Guard armor, which we've seen popping up more and more frequently in the recent years, which I think is really cool. And the armor itself feels really nice. The character itself is a fan of anime in the show, and I believe the designers stated that the protagonist of Izzy is somewhat anime-inspired, so I can definitely see the influence coming in here. She, of course, has Bunshu the Bunny, which is one of the main accessories that she utilizes in the show itself, as well as a recolor of the Nightmare King sword in gold and transparent blue, which is a really cool piece, a great fantastical element to get for a physical LEGO minifigure. Izzy also has an alternate face. You can see right here a very nice and cheery one. That's what the hairpiece looks on that alternate face there, but overall, definitely my favorite minifigure to come from the set, well, maybe second only to the Nightmare King himself. Speaking of the Nightmare King, I think it's time that we actually take a look at his ride. One last accessory is Z-Blob. Of course, you have an extra copy of the little tiny Baraki eyepiece for Z-Blob right here on a green bendable rod here. This allows you to kind of use him as a grappling hook to attach onto the ship itself. But with that, I think it's time we jump into the main vessel itself. So this is the Nightmare Shark Ship, and there's actually quite a lot that you can do with this build. And as the flagship's out of the wave, there's a lot that you can do with this build. First of all, turning a crank on the other side of the mouth allows you to open and close the shark jaw, which is a really fun motion, and I like how you actually have the entire front hull of the boat going up and down to mimic the motion of the shark biting down. This is just such a cool feature, and I really like how this is done. Of course, there's a crank on the other side, which actually has a winch, so as you're hovering above the ground, you can kind of have him maybe rappel up some of the soldiers, or maybe even capture or weigh down an anchor there. It's a really cool feature that just allows you to dangle this out of the mouth itself, and I just think it's a really fun thing to have as part of the boat itself. Now, for the rest of the boat, there's some amount of articulation with the fins. Obviously, these are mounted on Bionicle-esque ball joints, so you have the Batman wing elements being used for the side fins of the shark, which you can bend pretty much in any angle you want. There's actually a lot of articulation here, so I do like just how much articulation you can get. You have a couple of rotating deck cannons utilizing the stud shooter elements, so you can rotate those front and back like so. Now, it's also hiding a bit of a secret. See that gigantic eye in the center of the set? Well, if you lift up these claws here, you can cause the eye to actually fly outwards. This kind of feels like something out of like a Terraria type thing, or some sort of enemy in some fantasy D&D campaign where you just have a giant floating eye with tendrils on the back of it, flying along, chasing you. This is just such a cool concept, and I kind of wish we saw this in the show. And of course, once that's removed, there is a full interior, which we'll take a look at later on as we actually get into the build itself. So this does have an interior design to the ship. Rotating this around, you've got these engines, which you do have a bit of rotation. Not really sure if that was necessarily intentional, but you can rotate the sides of the engines to kind of make it seem like it is flying along. And lastly, you can move the tail up and down. So this is on click joints. You can move this up and down like so, and then you can, of course, bend this on ball joints back and forth. Now, I will have to say that the general concept and color scheme of this set is so cool. I love building LEGO sharks and mashups of different vehicles. I love LEGO boats, and this is basically taking a shark, taking a boat, and making it fly, and putting jet engines on the side, which is such a cool and inspired creative thing to do for a villain ship, and definitely one of the coolest looking Dreamzzz sets yet. This has a built-in rib cage onto the side of the shark itself, which also acts as a prison. So what you do is that you open this up and you literally can see there's kind of like a bed on the inside to capture some sleeping prisoners. So they kind of have a pillow there and some sheets, which I think is a really funny feature. Like you're literally just capturing them as they are sleeping and storing them in a bed on board the rib cage of the shark itself, which is very, very cool. And otherwise, I just really appreciate the color scheme of the build itself. I think the white almost feels like bone. It really makes us feel a lot more sinister and definitely adds a nice splash of color. These spring yellowish green teeth are a really good color to really bring out that spooky vibe. And of course, when you go to the mechanical details, you have a lot of gunmetal gray, you have a lot of dark gray and sand blue to really make that feel like the ship aspect. And of course, this is a fantasy-inspired shark, so there's a lot of magenta. There's black mixed with magenta for the wings here, which is a brand new recolor for these wing elements, looking very, very cool. And I like that LEGO is still using those relatively older elements in sets today. And you even have a massive throne and seat for the Nightmare King himself, with a big steering wheel to be able to pilot this through the skies. This is a really solid and cohesive set, and it is actually one of the most fun to just fly around. I mean, you can imagine just picking this up. It's really big, having it soar through the sky and terrorize your opponents. It is just so much fun. It is so cool. I love how this is built. The shark mouth just looks so much fun as it's closing and opening, up and down, chomping. The lantern on the front is a really smart idea. I like the aesthetics of having the lanterns mounted all around the sides. And one last thing is that the entire deck of this particular build can be separated outwards. So how this works is that you basically just pop this off. This whole thing comes off, and this does have a full-on interior. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up, and as you can see, there's not a ton that you can do in there, but there's some nice detailing. There's an hourglass that's being kept away, which is the hourglass piece that was introduced for LEGO Elves, but they utilized again for the Frozen Disney Castle, and then now they're using it a ton in LEGO Dreams for the Dream Chasers. You have a pair of guns to be wielded by the Night Hunter, which are always good to get. It's cool that you have a reference to some of the other members of the Nightmare King's army here, and you even have a harpoon. So there's lots of stuff that you can do here in a pretty cramped space. You can kind of open this up and treat this as the quarters of the ship itself. And then that just closes on upwards. You place the eye on the inside, so the eye just kind of sits there, not attached to anything. You just use these claws to hold it in place, and that cockpit is good to go. When this is removed, however, there is another additional function where you can kind of see some stuff hidden away. As we zoom on inwards to the inside part of the ship itself, you can see a lock button here. Well, when you press down on this button, you can cause this to kind of move upwards. It's not that drastic of a change, but I guess you can kind of cause it to move upwards, so you can grab this treasure chest outwards, and inside the chest there just are some little details like some gold ingots and treasure, but of course you could keep like captured items in there as well, or maybe an hourglass. You can really just play around with what you want to do with it, and I like how they even included an additional function just completely hidden away that for the most part isn't even going to be seen. One thing I really like is that they have a brown axle right here, which not only adds for stability, but allows you to know exactly where to place this downwards as long as you have it lined up with the axle, which I'm trying to do with one hand here. Then you know you're placing this down in the right spot, and then you can zoom on outwards and get to the finalized ship. Overall, this is definitely my favorite LEGO Dream set. It is the largest, and sometimes the largest ones aren't always the best ones, but I feel like in this case, yeah, the largest one is easily the best LEGO Dream set. I'm definitely partial towards the villains. I feel like the villain sets are always a little bit more interesting than the hero sets in general, but this is probably one of the coolest villain sets we've gotten from LEGO in a while, and I really, really appreciate how they basically went all out with a villain-focused build. A lot of times with original LEGO themes, they don't really do that. Like with Ninjago, the villains rarely get the largest set nowadays, and really only the heroes get the big sets, and the villains maybe get a small set here and there. This time though, a lot of focus has been dedicated to this one villain ship, and it looks so cool and easily is the standout set of the wave to me. With that, we've summed up my review of the Nightmare Shark Ship for $140. I actually think this is one of the more fairly priced Dream sets. Some of them are a bit overpriced, but I do feel like I'm getting my money's worth with a set like this. There's so much to do with it, it's so swishable, it's so much fun to play around with. I cannot wait to hang this from my ceiling, and so I would absolutely recommend this LEGO Dream set. I hope you enjoyed the review, and of course, let me know what you think down in the comments below.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up our look at the brand new Nightmare Shark ship releasing August 1st, 2023. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of the set? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And what do you think of LEGO Dreamzzz as a whole? I certainly had a blast putting this together. It was easily my favorite LEGO Dreamzzz set and my most anticipated when images first came out, and I can't wait to see what else LEGO will do with the theme. Until then, thank you all so much for tuning into Duckbricks. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and bye for now.